Welcome everyone, guys, and thank you for joining today's global webinar. We're going to talk about best practices with rechargeability for Philips, and as some of you might already know, my name is Marielle, and I will be your guide throughout today's session. So I designed this webinar specifically for you guys and how to do really the nitty-gritty, the everyday things that you have to deal when it comes to rechargeability, because at the end of the day, we just want happy clients. And when they're using rechargeable hearing aids, a lot of them who have already been wearing older hearing aids might need to get used to quite a few things. So we know that any inconvenience, anything that they are not aware of can easily become a big problem. So today we'll definitely be covering the whole range of the rechargeable hearing aids, the Philips chargers, the difference in the charging technologies, and of course, the best practices for you and your client. So let's get started. So if a client selects a rechargeable hearing aid, Philips offers actually a variety of hearing solutions to match the lifestyle. So here you can see on this slide that for Philips HearLink 50, there are actually 4 dedicated charger options. 2 for the mini right style on the right, and 2 for the mini BTE R style on the left side. So let me just get my pointer. And as you can see, that the new HearLink 50 actually uses contact charging technology. And this is really important to understand because it differs from inductive charging used in the previous generations. Contact charging is basically much more faster, it's more efficient, and we'll explore later on more details about this. One thing you should probably note is that for HearLink 40, 30, and 10, including the Cross, they are not compatible with these chargers, for those of you who would like to know, because the older rechargeable families use inductive charging and have their own dedicated chargers. And these are the chargers for the rest of the Philips rechargeable portfolio. So here you can see HearLink 40, 30, Cross, 1730, and 1530. It's not included here, but Philips HearLink 10, the rechargeable versions, can also be using the charger, specifically the MiniRite TR desk charger. For the other 3, HearLink 10 is not compatible. So as you can see here, everything uses inductive charging. And there's a desktop option and a portable charger plus for each style. So remember, guys, the key point here is the charging technology. You have contact charging for HearLink 50 and inductive charging for the rest. So we'll go more into that detail, but just to remind you, you're probably already aware, but inductive charging basically uses different charging coils. So there's a coil in the charger, another coil in the hearing aid, and when they come in close contact, they will create this magnetic field that then generates and transfers electricity. So it's a very different approach from how we do it now with HearLink 50 through contact charging. So for HearLink 40, 30, and 1730, 1530, you can see that it's all 4 charger styles are available. When we talk about the Philips Cross, because as we know, it comes with the MiniRite TR hardware, it is compatible only with the MiniRite Charger Plus and the MiniRite TR desk charger. So you will have the compatibility guide later on to look back if you're a bit confused, because it's a lot of chargers, guys. And one thing probably that you also should know, and it's a very practical point to emphasize, is that when it comes to differentiating the different chargers, of course, on the left, you have the chargers for the Mini BTE TR. And then on the right, you have the chargers for the MiniRite TR. And one easiest way to differentiate the Charger Plus is that the Mini BTE has a gray shell. So that's the Charger Plus for the Mini BTE TR. And it's black here, as you can see on the right with the Mini Right TR. And for the desk charger, it's a bit trickier, guys, to figure it out, especially when you have a lot of chargers in the clinic. The best way is actually to look at the sticker at the bottom. You would see whether that charger is for a mini right or a mini BTE TR. And the second thing you can look at is, of course, the hole where you put the hearing aid. The bigger hole, of course, belongs to the mini BTE TR, and the smaller one belongs to the mini right TR. And if you, I got asked, like, what happens if you put a mini right TR inside the mini BTE desk charger? And basically, the answer is yes, it will still charge. Maybe it's a yes, maybe it's a no, because the fit is loose. So not only might it not charge, it might not, but if it does, it will charge really slow and it won't reach 100%. So it's possible, but highly not recommended, guys. And of course, for the HearLink 50 chargers that you see here, they were actually designed with three things in mind. First, we wanted them to be really reliable, really usable and small, so you can bring them anywhere, and that it's easier to use in the clinic. So now let's look at what contact charging actually delivers. The first thing is contact charging provides a full day of power in just 1 hour. So basically, we classify, when we say a full day of power, we mean 16 hours. If you want to even charge it further up to 20 hours, then you would need 2 hours to charge that. But if you need a quick recharge, of course, you can get easily already 4 hours just by charging it for 15 minutes. So that's really good. And then contact charging also brings the clinical benefit that many hearing care professionals really appreciate, which is you can actually program the hearing aids while they are charging. So if your client arrives in your clinic with a low battery and it's already the appointment, then maybe you need to do a firmware update. And with this, you can actually do the firmware update while it is charging. So that's really good and efficient when you need it, of course. It doesn't have to be in the charger when you're connecting it to HearSuite, but it's possible. So when it comes to the contact charging mechanism, how does it work? Basically, when the hearing aids are placed in the charger, the contact points actually um, they come in contact with the gold springs found inside the charging port. So this scraping motion actually serves two purposes. First is it creates an electrical connection, so it charges. And the second thing is that it removes any dirt or debris from the contact points. So it's kind of like self-cleaning. And then one more thing is when the hearing aids are actually placed in the charger, it's very important to remember that they actually remain detectable for the first 3 minutes. So during this 3 minutes, they can be still paired to a phone. They still can be detected by HearSuite with HearLink Wireless, and the battery status can be checked in the HearLink 2 app. So only in the first 3 minutes is this possible. And why contact charging? Okay, so why contact charging? This is a concept that really differentiates HearLink 50, and it's worth explaining clearly to clients who ask why their battery seems to perform consistently over time. So with all rechargeable batteries, capacity, they naturally get worse with each charge cycle. This applies for everything with a rechargeable lithium-ion battery. And with traditional charging, you start with definitely a maximum capacity and then it slowly declines. So this means that user begin to hear the low battery warning earlier, and then earlier the more years pass by. So that's why we actually address this because HearLink 50, it uses a new charging technique, and that's called constant capacity charging. And here's how it works. So a portion of the battery's initial capacity is actually reserved. Approximately 20% is reserved and not used at all. And then the battery slowly begins getting and drawing on this reserve gradually over time as the capacity naturally degrades. So the result is that your client experiences a consistent daily runtime throughout the lifetime of the hearing aid, and that's around 5 years. And this is a key message when trying to manage client expectations, especially if they get the older rechargeable hearing aid families, because at first, we can expect that they will have a reliable, consistent experience but over time, this might not be the case. So it's kind of like a fuel tank with a reserve gauge. You always have consistent access to the same amount, even as the total capacity slowly reduces with age. So here you can see that with traditional charging, and that is the gray curve, the daily runtime starts really high. And normally it should work really great in the first year. But as you can see, by year 2 and year 3, it really dropped significantly. And users will probably start running out of power before the end of the day. And they might need a battery replacement depending on how they use the hearing aid. So with constant capacity charging, that's the blue curve, the daily runtime is intentionally, it's more conservative at the outset. So we save a portion of the battery life for it to last longer. And the battery is basically designed to last throughout the whole battery life of the hearing aid. We expect that to be around 5 years without experiencing any significant drop or needing the battery to be replaced. So this is our expectation. So for your clients, the practical message is don't worry if the HearLink 50 doesn't last for 30 or 40 or 50 hours, because it is meant to function like that. It is reserving the battery life and it's working as designed. So they will have a much more consistent experience throughout the years to come. Yeah. And then this is actually one of the questions we got, like, how well tested is this? Because I've heard from some of you guys that, hey, I've had problems from time to time, especially with an older rechargeable HearLink family, like, I don't know, HearLink 10 or HearLink 30. And the clients come back to me after a year and it doesn't last for the whole day anymore. So that's why these are the kinds of feedbacks we actually take into account. Of course, it doesn't happen for all clients. Some people who have been using rechargeable batteries, hearing aid batteries, don't have any complaints. But this is what we kept in mind when we actually made the new rechargeability options for HearLink 50. And before we actually launched the charger and the hearing aids, we tested more than 600 batteries, millions of hours of accumulated test time, testing across the full operating temperature range to make sure that it still charges effectively without degrading the quality of the battery. And yeah, we tested it basically for the equivalent of 5 years of daily use. So this is not a theoretical design. We actually made sure to validate this in real world conditions in a wide variety of different usage patterns. Artists with streaming, without streaming, with a large amplification, with little amplification. So the technology is really, really reliable. And it's designed to be one step above inductive charging from the traditional hearing aid families we've had. So the first question we have is, my client's rechargeable hearing aid doesn't last a whole day and it has only been a year. What's causing this and what should I tell my client? So you guys already probably know, but battery runtime it depends on so many different factors, not just the actual device. So when counseling your client, explain that there are many things that affect how long the battery might last on a single charge. The first thing is probably the degree and the nature of hearing loss. Obviously, if you have more hearing loss, then the greater the amplification, then the more power is needed. And then the second thing is also what is the speaker being used? Um, Fun fact, did you know that the speaker 85 actually uses the most amount of power, even compared to, well, 60, obviously, but even compared to 100. So that's interesting. Apparently, that's the case. Please don't ask me why. It's something that the R&D told me. And then another thing that would actually influence the battery life is, of course, the hearing aid settings and features. So if the motion sensor is activated, for example, or the noise management is maximum and the directionality is always moving and working, then of course this would definitely affect the battery life. Where does the client spend their listening environment? Are they often outside? Are they often inside? How much do they stream audio with Bluetooth? Are they often on their phone calls? Are they often listening to podcasts? Are they watching videos, music, etc.? So this, including the fact that all lithium-ion batteries naturally age over time. You cannot avoid this, unfortunately. The capacity does reduce. All of these things definitely affect the battery life. So this is some things to keep in mind so that the client can also be aware that it also depends on how they use it. And when it comes to the expected battery lifespan, so I put here the different models, the different HearLink families, and also the battery types. Of course, we have the HearLink 10, 30, and 40 mini-right TR models. So these are our older models, you can say. And the lithium-ion battery that they use is the size 312 plus. And specifically, the name is called Zenny Power Z22A lithium-ion battery. So there were different kinds of lithium-ion batteries that we've had before, actually. But the most recent one is the Zenny Power Z22A. So this is the newest version of the 312 battery designed for our older HearLink families. And we expect it to last approximately 2 years before we actually need to have it replaced. This is a bit subjective, guys, because not all clients really see a problem. They don't need to have it replaced. Um, they use it maybe, a moderate amount. Maybe they have calls from time to time, but it's not regular. So maybe it might even last in 3 years before you need to replace it. But this is one important thing, of course, that you guys probably already know because the mini-right TR models, specifically from HearLink 10, 30, and 40, are the ones which can be changed by you. Whereas if we go down to the second model, which is the mini BTE TR models from HearLink 30 and 40, this is where we actually started to design the battery drawer a bit differently. So it's now encapsulated. There are no battery drawers when the HearLink 30 and 40 mini BTE TR models came out. And we did it for a few reasons. The first thing is we wanted to still make this mini BTE small. We wanted to put a bigger battery because there are some mini BTE models that are actually, they used 312, 312 batteries. And we wanted a size 13 battery. That's why we made it encapsulated. And if you want to have it replaced, it's only possible in the lab. The flip side to that is that we actually predict, this is what we expect, that the mini BTETR models for HearLink 30 and 40 will last longer than the mini right TR, around 4 to 5 years. So that's another difference from the mini right TR models. Whereas for HearLink 50, for both the mini right and mini BTER models, they use size 13 lithium-ion battery. And the good thing with this, as I mentioned before, is we did test it and make sure and to give that extra guarantee that it would last the longest out of all families. And we also added a different charging technique, which is the constant capacity charging technique. So even though the battery replacement is only possible in the lab, you have to send it in. We don't expect that you would even need to have the battery changed because it's definitely designed to last for a long time. So for the HearLink 50, it's really important to also set clear expectations for your client right from the very beginning. That obviously you need to send the hearing aid for service if the batteries does need to be replaced, even though we don't expect it to happen. So the reason behind this is that the battery is actually fully integrated and it's soldered right down to the chip. So it is sealed, there's moisture protection, there's corrosion resistance, and the structural connection to the microchip, the circuit board, is already soldered. So this design is what allows contact charging to be so reliable and the housing to be really compact. So what your client needs to know is that first, they're expected to last for 5 years, maybe even more, depends on the streaming use. And the battery life can definitely depend on the type of hearing loss, their environment, their streaming habits, and the battery is covered under the warranty of the hearing aid. So that's also another case. But in the situation that it's out of warranty, then of course the standard repair charge applies, although the replacement is actually more complex in that sense. So this should not happen, I repeat, but if there is something wrong with the HearLink 50 or the HearLink 30 or 40, or then I would recommend that before you send it for servicing or to have it checked or the battery replaced, then make sure that you activate the battery protection mode in HearSuite. So this definitely protects the battery while you're transferring it. So here you can see that in Philips HearSuite, if you go to Finish Session and then Batteries, for the HearLink 50, it would show the current battery level in terms of percentage, and then the battery health status. So here it shows that the battery is in good condition, and if it's gray, then it would recommend that you replace it. It doesn't mean you have to, but as long as your client is happy with the battery life, then you don't have to. So if the battery health check indicates that you actually need to replace it, then if it's a HearLink 40 or a HearLink, if it's a HearLink 50 or a mini BTE rechargeable device, then you do need to have it sent for servicing or repair. But when it comes to a hearing aid that can be replaced by you in the clinic, so if you need to replace the lithium-ion battery, then of course it looks a bit different in the software. So the first step is to replace the batteries. As you can see on the picture on the right, you use this tool to push, to put inside the hole and to push, and it would pop open. The battery door will actually pop open, and then you physically change the batteries, of course. So after you change it into the new battery, then you can connect it to the software, and then you connect it. So that's the thing. So here are just instructions for step one, and then once it's connected to the software, you can select that you change the lithium-ion battery on the right side or the left side, and then you can click which side. And then the third one is entering the serial number of the new battery. So with each new battery, normally on the package, there's actually a serial number. It's usually 10 digits. And it's important to put it there because in case there's something wrong with the battery, or maybe there's a very bad batch of batteries, for warranty, for traceability, If you need to tell us that, hey, all of these batteries are not working, then it's important that we know the serial number. So it's really important in case of defective batteries that you put the serial number. And then step 4 is to reset the battery statistics. So this is currently grayed out in the step 4, but normally that's colored. And when you click on that, it makes sure that the HearLink 2 app will have an accurate battery level readout. So maybe in the first day, it might not be super accurate, but in the following days, it should be more and more accurate to read out the battery level of the hearing aid. Yeah, usually it takes maybe 2 full charges or discharge cycles after the reset of for the battery level can be really, really accurate. So if your client is worried, like, hey, the battery percentage in my phone, it says this, it's so confusing. We do expect it in the first day or two that as the app is slowly reading the information from the new battery. So the next question is, how does heavy streaming, so phone calls, TV, Bluetooth audio, affect battery performance? And what should we tell clients who stream all day? So this is definitely one of the most common sources of confusion for clients because the battery life is unexpectedly short. And one of the main culprit is actually streaming. So the battery runtime for a given day depends again on a lot of factors, hearing loss, hearing aid settings, acoustic environment, but streaming is actually a really big one. And this is what you can tell your clients that streaming is actually a significant battery drain. And it's important to have realistic expectations because in general, whenever you're streaming a large amount of data, audio and other information is actually draining the battery more. So you actually wear down the battery much more, and this results in a shorter lifespan. Streaming requires much more capacity, and yeah, it's just physics, it requires a lot. So in addition to the actual processing of the sound processing of the hearing aid, you're also adding streaming on top of that. So it's basically just a physical limitation, and that's unfortunately the case for most hearing aids. It's power management. It's still something that most of us do struggle in, I have to say. Next question is, do lithium-ion batteries, do they last longer if they're not charged every? No. The best practice is to charge your hearing aids every night because unlike older battery types, lithium-ion batteries do not actually have what they call this charge memory. So there's no benefit to fully discharging them before charging it again, and doing so could actually shorten the battery's overall lifespan. So my recommendation, just charge the hearing aids every night, even if the hearing aids still have some battery left. So leave it in the charger when you're not using it. So when fitting a new HearLink user, rechargeable hearing aid user, you can actually take a moment and make sure that you walk through this checklist with them. As we know, when it comes to counseling with clients who are wearing rechargeable hearing aids, you do need to spend more time with them because it's a new product and there are different ways of using it and taking care of it. So the first one is charging. What you should tell for them is to charge the hearing aids every night. So make sure that they place the hearing aids correctly in the charging port. As you can see in this picture, the speakers should be in the same direction as the charging cable. And you should be able to see the Philips logo, yeah? So speaker on the same side as the charger cable. And then the LED on each hearing aid should show green or orange, the LED should light up. That shows that the charging has started. So they have to check. And if the hearing aids are actually inserted incorrectly, they will not charge. So that means there's no LED light and it will not charge. So make sure that it sounds really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many clients actually don't check if they're properly charging or not. And if the hearing aids are really dirty, then even though they think that it's charging, maybe it's not. So the second thing is regarding on and off. So you can tell your client that the hearing aids turn on automatically the moment that they remove the hearing aids from the charger. Remind them to keep the charger connected to the power outlet as long as the hearing aids are in it. So some people who maybe charge your phones, sometimes they also unplug the charger, but you cannot do this when you have the HearLink chargers. So keep the charger always connected to power. That's the best solution. If the power is disconnected while the hearing aids are still inside the charger, then the hearing aids will actually enter a low power sleep mode to preserve battery. So it's still good, but that means that the hearing aids actually automatically turn off. And when there's no power to the charger and then they take out the hearing aids, then it will not turn on automatically because it went to sleep mode. And then when it comes to storage, so the charger is always the ideal storage place for hearing aids whenever they're not in use. And when stored in the charger and connected to power, they will always be fully charged and ready. So the basic lesson here is just to keep the charger plugged in. That's the easiest thing to remind your client. And here are a few instructions on how to take care of the chargers that you can pass on to your clients and to keep in mind. Of course, it's very important to keep the charging ports so that those are the two holes inside the chargers to keep them clean and dry. And when it comes to cleaning, a lot of my customers, they use something with alcohol or very harsh chemicals. And I definitely don't recommend this because it has the capacity of not only reducing the IP rating, the protective covering or the protective kind of coating on these chargers, but they might actually also affect the way the chargers charge. So I really recommend just use a dry cloth. Do not use cotton buds, do not use water, do not use cleaning fluids inside the charging port. Okay, dry is the best. And of course, it's the same for the hearing aids. Make sure that you just wipe them dry. And if it's really dirty, make sure that the wipe that you use is alcohol-free. When it comes to the best temperature for charging, of course, we have 15 degrees centigrade all the way to 35 degrees centigrade. This is one thing that is really good to remember is that all lithium-ion batteries are very sensitive to temperature. So that applies for, Tesla, that applies for our phones. It cannot be too hot, it cannot be too cold, otherwise it stops working. So that's why when it comes to your HearLink chargers, make sure that the chargers are not inside radiators or direct sunlight, or if you leave the charger plus, for example, inside the car and it's summer, this is one way to guarantee that the batteries on the hearing aid and in the charger plus will be kaput. Very important. So if In summer, you have clients who come to you, oh, my charger is not working, or this power bank, it's already not charging, or my hearing aids are dead. Very important to ask them, like, did you leave? Did you leave your hearing aids? Did you leave your charger inside a car where it's really hot or somewhere really hot? So it's really important to make sure that you put them somewhere in a good temperature. When it comes to external power sources, the charger can be powered from a USB 2.0 source. It can be a laptop, it can be the car, it can be a power bank, as long as there's a minimum of 500 milliamperes of output. So that's the only thing. And let's say you have a power bank, which is super small. Well, most likely the capacity is not good. Then it's simple. It will just not charge because there's not enough power. And this is something which you might forget. So if you don't do it, then make sure you remind your client, and that is to charge the portable charger plus fully to 100% before first use. This is the best way to make sure that the battery or the power bank battery inside the charger plus will last a long time. It's very important. So next question. My client asks, how do I know if my hearing aids are charging properly? So I mentioned this earlier before, but basically the moment you put the hearing aids in the charger, the LED should light up. If it's not 100%, then it's usually orange, but if it's 100%, then it's green. And a few key points to remember is to make sure that the hearing aids are placed with the speakers pointing again in the same side as the cable. And if you're using the Charger Plus, make sure to close the lid after you put the hearing aids inside. If you don't close the lid, it will make charging way slower. So you have to make sure to close the lid. If there's no LED light on the hearing aid, check that the charger is plugged in. Check if the port or the contact port is clean and that the hearing aids are actually properly inside. So a common reason for no charging overnight is that the hearing aids are not actually put properly, or maybe it's on one angle, or there's dirt in the contact point. So it's really important to check all of these because they really sound so obvious, but sometimes our clients will come back and tell you it's not working. And it's because the hearing aids are really dirty, for example. And understanding the LED indicators really saves a lot of visits. So basically, this is what you should remind your client for desktop chargers. Make sure that they see the solid green color. So for the older version of the desktop charger, is at the bottom, the LED lights. It should always be green, as you can see here. So the moment you see the green LED on the charger, here for the older version and the newer version, it's at the back. That means that the chargers are receiving power and they're functioning normally. And then for the Charger Plus, you can see the indicator lights on the back. So of course, 3 green LEDs means that the power bank is fully charged and can charge 3 full hearing aid charge cycles. And then when it's blinking orange, then the power bank battery is too low for a full cycle. So you need to connect it to the charging cable. How do I know if the problem is the hearing aid or the charger? So these are really basic steps to just remind yourself. Probably you guys already do this, but this is a systematic way of checking. The first thing you should do is start by troubleshooting the hearing aid. So these are the 3 simple steps. The first one is you should start by checking and cleaning the hearing aids as well as the charging contacts on the hearing aids. Use a dry cloth. Sometimes they sweat a lot, sometimes there's oils, sometimes they even wear perfumes and all of these other lotions. So clean the hearing aid first, And then the second step is once they clean and they're functioning, so the hearing aid turns on, there's sound coming from the speaker, then they can try charging the hearing aids in your charger. It's always good to have your own charger in the clinic exactly for these troubleshooting scenarios. And then the third step is once the hearing aids have charged for around 15 minutes, you can then check the health of the rechargeable hearing aid battery in HearSuite. So with all hearing aids, you can look in the fitting software and check the battery health. And yeah, so if they're using HearLink 50, then they can actually just use the HearLink 2 app to check the charging status and the remaining charge. So by working through these steps, you'll be able to determine if the issue is actually the hearing aid. Then you can also remind your users or your clients to use their app when they're troubleshooting a charging issue at home before they come to you in the clinic. And having hearing aid users, of course, bring their charger to the clinic is definitely the ideal scenario. Ask them, bring the charger, bring the charger. So you can also see how did they put the hearing aids in the charger? Do they put it in the correct way? Maybe there's something wrong with their chargers. So when troubleshooting all of these things, it's very helpful to also have your own charger. So something that obviously you know works. So when you're testing the user's hearing aid, if they charge with the clinic charger but not with the user's own charger, maybe it's their charger which is wrong, or maybe there's something wrong with the charging cable or their electrical outlet. So it's really important to ask them to bring their own chargers and to have your own charger. And if you've determined that the hearing aid is perfect, it's functioning, it's time to troubleshoot the hearing aid user's charger. So just follow these simple steps. The first one is to check if the charger LED lights switch on when they are plugged in. If not, you can try changing the USB cable, or you can also change the adapter plug if it's possible. And then you can also try another wall outlet. And if the user's charger is still not turning on, then it will need to be sent back to repair. So if there's no LED light, as you see on this picture, time to have it replaced. So if the charger is switching on, then the next step is to inspect it for any damage and clean the charger, including the two contact ports. So those are the two holes there. And then once they're cleaned, try charging the user's hearing aid and then test the charger with a pair of clinic hearing aids. So then try charging for 15 minutes. Yeah, and if the hearing aids are still not charging, then the charger will need to be sent back for repair. And I also got some questions regarding orange blinks on the hearing aid. So here are just some information regarding troubleshooting. What if there are orange blinks? So the first thing you need to check for sure is what is the pattern of the orange blinks in the hearing aid. If it's 4 long orange blinks repeated 4 times, so it's 16 blinks altogether, then that actually means that the microphone needs to be cleaned. Okay, so you can try to clean the microphone yourself with a cleaning tool. And then if there's still the problem, then you can send it to the lab for servicing. And in terms of the sound, the client will tell you that they hear this 8 beeps repeatedly 4 times. So this is a visual indicator and this is the audio indicator. So if that's what you get from the client, then probably there's something wrong with the microphone or it needs to be cleaned. And then if the LED shows 3 long orange blinks and it doesn't stop, it's very continuous when placed in the charger, then there's something wrong with the hearing aid. It indicates a system error and the hearing aids need to be replaced. So That's a serious kind of blink that you don't want to see. But hopefully that doesn't happen very often in your experience. What about if the orange LED on the charger is blinking? What does that mean? So it depends again on the pattern. There are two distinct orange LED patterns on the Charger Plus that indicates different issues. So the first pattern is the one that you see at the top. So if all three LEDs are blinking orange, then this means that there's a system error in the charger and they need to be replaced. And then the second pattern is two LED orange blinking. So what this means is that the hearing aids or the charger's temperature is too cold or too warm for it to start charging. So what you can do or tell your client is that they should move the Charger Plus with the hearing aids to a location between 5 to 40 degrees centigrade, somewhere between that, not too hot, not too cold. And the charging will automatically start again once the temperature is within the safe range. And of course, the last thing that you see here, if you only see one orange blink, that simply means that the power bank is charging. So this is not an error. Next question. My client says the hearing aids sometimes they don't start when they are taken out of the charger. So what happened? Okay, this is almost always caused by one of these two things. Either the client has unplugged the charger with the hearing aids still in the charger, or the hearing aids that were not correctly placed in the charger. So when the charger loses power while the hearing aids are still inside, then the hearing aids will automatically turn off. And this is just a protective feature designed to prevent battery from draining while the device is not in use. And the hearing aids will remain off until the charger is again connected to a power source or until they're removed physically from the charger. So it's really important to keep the charger powered, okay, at all times while the hearing aids are still inside. That way, the moment they take the hearing aids out of the charger, it just automatically turns on because it has been charging for the whole time. And one more thing to remember is if it does happen, you can always tell your client you can manually turn on the hearing aid by pressing the lower push button. So in case it automatically goes into sleep mode, then they can still turn it on by pressing the lower push button. And as I mentioned before, most of the rechargeable instruments, they just switch off when the charger is not connected to a power source. But if your client is actually using a HearLink 10 rechargeable hearing aid, the behavior is actually different because if there is a power failure, so maybe they remove the charger also, the hearing aids will actually turn on and the battery will start draining, even if they're not being used. So there's no automatic switch off function. It will keep turning on and it will drain. So this is really important to those who are using the HearLink 10 Mini Right TRs. How should clients clean the charging contacts, and how does earwax or moisture affect charging? Actually, this is also a fun fact because did you know that dirt, oil, moisture are actually the leading causes of charging failures? Like it's very simple, but that's one of the main reasons why we have issues with charging because the clients may not realize that the hearing aids are not properly inside or the contacts are covered with dirt, so it's not charging. So also, sometimes there's dirt, there's corrosion, there's residue in the charging contacts. So this is really something, cleanliness, which is really important. With older hearing aids, it wasn't as important because the batteries were replaceable, right? But for the mini right TRs, I'm sure some of you have had this problem where the older mini right TR models, since the client cannot open the battery drawer, sometimes the sweat, it does accumulate inside. And the problem is it's not regularly aerated. So this is really something you have to emphasize with your rechargeable users. Whenever it gets too wet, before they go to sleep or whenever they exercise or before or after, if they're very active, if they're always sweating, please ask them to make it a habit to wipe the hearing aids as needed. You know, the more active they are, the more sweat there is, the more you have to remind them that the hearing aids will not clean by themselves. They need to wipe them. So they should make it part of their cleaning routine, aside from putting it in the charger, to also wipe the hearing aid at least once a day, at least, before they go to sleep. That is the best case scenario. And when it comes to the chargers, of course, you can see here that when it comes to cleaning the charger, this is a proper process. So for the newer desk charger, HearLink 50, you can see that you can unplug the charger. So that's the first step. With the older ones, you cannot. But that's the first thing you should do. And then the second step is to prepare your cleaning tool. So basically what you can do is you wrap a cleaning wipe. Remember, it should be dry. Maybe if it's really dirty, you can use an alcohol-free cleaning wipe. So make sure it's alcohol-free because, the contacts inside the charging ports, they're very sensitive. And then after that, after you wrap this alcohol-free cleaning wipe around the micro brush, then it looks something like this. Make sure you don't use alcohol wipes or do not use anything metal that will also damage the charger. And then you gently wipe all sides of the charging ports with the twisting motion and repeat it as needed. So you just insert it in each charging port. And then you can do this gentle twisting motion. Do not press hard, especially when you see the golden contact chargers, because these golden springs can easily be damaged or distorted if you don't do it right. And I tried to do it. It's actually not so easy, so keep that in mind. And then clean the outer surface. So use a brush to clean the surface and all of the crevices. And then you can wipe the charger clean and allow to air dry for around 5 minutes. And this is a time where you retest. So then you can place the hearing aids in the charger to check if charging is happening. And if it's still not charging, test with your own hearing aids from the clinic. And if the charger still doesn't work with any hearing aids, then that's when you need to have it sent in. Next question, how do we do the long-term storage if the hearing aids won't be used for a month or more? So clients sometimes ask what to do if they won't be wearing their hearing aids for an extended period because perhaps they're traveling or they're in the hospital or maybe they want to use their old hearing aids temporarily. So the recommendation from the instruction manual for clients specifically is to fully charge the hearing aid, turn them off, and store them inside a case, not in a charger. And then they should set a reminder, maybe in their phone, to recharge them every 6 months to keep the battery healthy. Ideally, much more often than this, of course, but the minimum should be every 6 months. And then for the hearing care professionals, you can use the battery protection mode in HearSuite. And basically, this definitely preserves and puts the hearing aid in this very deep sleep state to preserve the battery. And the battery protection mode, of course, it's where the battery really uses the minimum amount. So it really saves the battery. and it prevents the battery from discharging below the limits from where it can be awakened. So that's really important, especially when you are not sure what the state of the battery health is. And when it comes to activating this battery protection mode, it's pretty straightforward. You connect the hearing aid first to HearSuite, because no connected hearing aid equals the battery protection mode will not be seen in the software. And then go to Tools, set to battery protection mode, and then after that you click Save, and then your hearing aids are dead, basically. And if you want to wake up your hearing aid, of course, you can easily do that by putting it in the charger, waiting for the LED light to turn on, and then taking it out of the charger. And then you can start using it. So the next question is, what is the best method for drying rechargeable hearing aids to avoid corrosion? So when it comes to rechargeable hearing aids, moisture can definitely be challenging to address. In normal environments, you just wipe the hearing aid and then you just put it in the charger. But some clients, especially in areas where there's a high humidity, then this is what we would actually recommend. So as I suggested, make sure that it becomes part of their habit to wipe the hearing aid every day, at least once a day, with a dry cloth, or as often as needed. But in some places where it's really humid, we recommend these two options, which have been tested by R&D as compatible electric drying systems. So you can see different kinds of hearing aids here, and then the charger are at the top. What are the important things I have to remind my client who buys rechargeable hearing aids? So these are just some basic things you probably already know. Ensure the hearing aids are properly placed. Charge the hearing aids every night. The hearing aids are on when the moment they're removed from the charger. They don't need to do anything else. Green means charge, orange means not fully charged. And then to store the hearing aids in the charger if they go to sleep, and they can use a Charger Plus when they're on the go. And of course, I mentioned all of these before. The Charger Plus are a bit more trickier because, yeah, you have to do things like make sure the lid is closed, make sure that it's inside the acceptable temperature limits, and so forth. And then I already mentioned this, but when you're using the Charger Plus for the first time, make sure to fully charge it to 100%. Before storing the Charger Plus for more than 2 weeks, make sure again to charge it to 100% and to charge it at least once every year, assuming that it's at 100%. So these are things which will make sure that the battery health of the power bank remains good. And of course, they can check the battery level through the app. So you can see here, there's a lot of options. And also you will see that if the hearing aids are charging, it will be blue. And if the hearing aids are finished charging, you would see a banner which is green. So this is only for HearLink 50. And finally, we are done. Good, guys. You held on. Congrats. These are the resources that we have. So we have a flow chart which you can follow if you want to troubleshoot a rechargeable hearing aids, or it could also be the charger. We also have the charger compatibility overview because we have so many chargers, so we need to know which one is which. And of course, for the HearLink 50, this was an old overview that we had, which could be actually useful for your clients. So probably you guys already know this, but for a client, this is probably new, and they might not be as aware of how to take care of something with a lithium-ion battery. So that ends the presentation. Thank you guys for listening in. I really appreciate it.